a big spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation, PDF with lots of pages on it, and I'm going to use that simply as my guideline. But what I want to do is I'm going to go over each thing, and then I'm going to open the floor up for questions after each section. So, any questions? Okay. All right. So first off, getting started, what I want to do is we're going to go into AC config, and I believe everyone that's on should be on at least version 9, and that's what we're going to be looking at, most recent version 9 that's out there. And going into rates and rate class setup. Now, as always, when it comes in here, it wants to give you a warning that if you make any changes or add anything, you have to make sure you enter rates for a new rate class, or if you change a name, you have to re-enter the rates for it because it changes how the rates work. So in my first view here, what we've got is all of the rate classes that are built here, and I have rates and packages, and reservation rates and group rates. So reservation rate classes are pardon me here. Showing in a quick view across the top of the screen, we've got rack rate is always showing up here, and it is highlighted with a light color, which says this is what is your rack rate. And you can name rack rate whatever you want, but it needs to be, we need to have something defined as rack, so that, because we use that as the basis for several other things throughout our process. Now, in this screen, you can also customize how we look at the screen. Okay, we can change our view if you want to look at just reservations. I can change my view here so I can see all of the reservations here within one screen as far as reservation rate classes, or just my groups, in which I have 3 different types of group master rate classes, or show them all. Okay, you can also choose to see which columns show up as you scroll across, and also which start and end date and different options that are available for each type. Now, I have some functions that are turned on here which may be specific only to some CRSs, so you may or may not see some of these things in your own data set, depending upon if you have Best Western or if you have an HT&G style or enhanced interface to your CRS. So first off, let's take a look at what we have here. This is our rack rate, and it's hard-coded and defined as rack here, which is why it's showing up here in green. And it's always set to be available, and you can't set discounts or flags off of it. Rack needs to be your primary rate class, and we use that when we're talking about when we're going to use rack as the base for many of our other rate classes. Okay, rack should be available to all room types and all days of the week. Other rate classes, such as AAA, classically are set as a discount off of rack, as the general is 10%. So in a case of this set, what we're going to do is we're going to say we put in our rate base here for rack, showing here, meaning we're going to base AAA off of rack rate, and then we're going to say it's going to be a percentage discount of 10% off of rack rate. When you set that, then you never have to set your prices for AAA, only for rack. Anytime you adjust your rack, this rate will automatically move. Now, if you're a Best Western, rate levels are mandated by Best Western as to which rate class falls into which rate level or bucket, and that is displayed here. If you change it here in AutoClerk, you're going to be out of sync with MemberWeb, so you always want to make sure that that gets changed on Best Western beforehand. Okay. If you have rate classes that are not visible to your central reservation system or Best Western, for example, our seasonal promo rate here, we flag it as local here in the options, and we do not translate it in the interface down here in the lower section. CRS rate class or plan, this is where you set your translation for what your CRS is going to be sending or expecting rates or rate classes on reservations for with this. So now when it comes to packages, there's a flag here for package, which defines that this is going to be a package rate class. Now, packages, I'm not going to delve into too much on this call. We're going to probably do another webinar on packages alone. And packages are can also be used to have their rate portion of the package based off of another rate class or rack with a percentage or discount, and then you would only simply have to define in the package breakout the amenities that are going to be part of that, and AutoClerk will automatically configure that and make each reservation work with the package based on the rates that are in place at that time for whatever your rate base is. Okay. Group master rate classes, many properties just have one, but you can have multiple. Group master rate classes work like market segments. So you can have, in my example, I have a standard group master. I have one set up for corporate groups and one for SMRF type groups. That helps you to track what type of group business you're getting, not just what group rates are. Okay. Also in this screen, we can change our rate class order. This button here allows you to say this is what is going to show up in the drop-down menu within a reservation or in your drop-down off of your F4, what sequence you want those rate classes to show up in. So I want my rack rate to be my first one because that's my highest point. But maybe I want my preferred rate to be my next one. So I can highlight that, move it up here in the list, and then that will be the second selection available in any drop-down menu for rates. Okay, and then maybe I want my daily rate here. And then if you're running a promotional rate for a particular period of time, you can come in at this time and move that up all the way up to the top so that it becomes the first option that they can choose from. Now the rate class within a reservation default will always stay what you have that set as. When we go into a standard reservation, it always defaults to where we have it set to default to rack. And we can change what that is if you ever want to, and you do that in the, there's a setting in rate setup grid that allows us where we can alter that default. Go ahead and say OK from here. Now, in this view, you can also reorganize this list anytime you come in by simply clicking on a column header here. So if I want to look at this list in an alphabetical sequence, I can click on the description header and it resequences my list in an alphabetical fashion. Or by code, if I click on the code column header, or the ID, which is the number in which they were created within the program. Okay. The other thing that you see on the screen over here is interface setup. When you have a CRS interface, or Central Reservation System interface, you choose which rate classes are going to be you're going to be sending out to your CRS. If it's built on your CRS on one side, it needs to be built in AutoClerk, and then you two of them communicate by defining what that rate class is on their side of the equation. And for the most part, many times we have them the same, but sometimes if it's different, you can use a different code here. It doesn't have to be the same. So if I wanted to make my drive-by promo rate available on my CRS, I have it built on that side. When it's ready to go, I say, I put in my DP here, and they're going to be expecting DP rate class in the interface. to translate. Now, if you use rate levels with the Best Western, the rate levels button here allows you to see what rate classes are in what rate level. And all of this, again, is defined on Best Western, and this is where those things can be plugged into. Okay, and you can see you have different rate classes within different rate levels. You can have up to 8 rate levels. All right, I'm going to go ahead and say OK from the screen here. Now, if anyone has a question, raise your hand, or you can type a question in the question box on the side right now. Lisa, go ahead and type a question in the box there, and let me know if you have anything. Okay, sorry, you hit it accidentally, no problem. Okay. All right, so, all right, now at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to, let's go into the rate grid. Okay, so the rate class is where we define the codes and the rules that apply to those codes, whether you make them available for days of the week or time frames. Rate setup grid is where we define the prices for those rate classes. Okay, now what you're going to see here is over on the left side of the screen is your rate grid. The right side of the screen over here is where shows you your work in progress as we're coming through and working within a rate grid. So I have some pretty standard rates loaded here for my rack rate on my standard tier. When you come into this screen, it gives you a 30-day range. Now you can put in up to 2 years, or 720 days at any given time. And then at that point, that's how many days are in here. And anytime you're making changes in here, going through your grid here, that's how many days are now you're going to be impacted. Okay, so you can do this for as short as 1 day only and make a change for just 1 day, or up to 2 years at a time. Okay, so first off, when we're doing rates, my process is that I like to build my first room type and define everything I like about that room type. What is the rate? Is my rate going to be higher on the weekdays or weekends? Depends upon what type of market you're in. For our example, I like to talk about, because my background where I came from and ran hotels for years, for 20 years, was in tourist and destination areas, Napa Valley, Bodega Bay, Half Moon Bay, those kind of places. So I always work in the function that I'm busier on weekends than I am on weekdays. So what I want to do here is say, I want my prices to be higher on weekends rather than weekdays. Now, in this data set, we have just every day of the week is the same price. My kings are all one price. My queens are another price. My doubles are another price. Okay? And in this particular copy of AutoClerk I have here, there are 2 non-sleeping room types, 90 rooms for house accounts, CF for conference rooms, and XX for run of the house type rooms. So what I'm going to define here is say, I want everything on my king room here to be lower on the weekdays, higher on the weekends. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the base rate column header right here. And that's going to select that column. And I've selected it all the way down through April 13 of 2016. Okay? And then I'm going to use my set by day of week function down here. And I'm going to say for Fridays and Saturdays, I'm going to set a premium of an additional $25 per night. So instead of $100 per night, it's going to be $125. I can do that again. Okay? And I'm going to say OK at this point. And then we see that alters my weekday weekend structure here, but just initially for my king bedded room. Now, I can go through and do this for each room type if I want to do it, but you also have tricks or tools that allow us to copy this to other ones. Since I have 4 room types that are king beds and they're all the same price, I'm going to use my copy to function down here at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to highlight my base rate, hit copy to, and then I'm going to copy to my rack rate, and I'm going to copy to all of my king rooms. That's what I just did. So now everything is copied over within here. So now each of my king rooms are all the same price with our new weekend pricing in place. Now also, the next thing that we can do is take our double queen rooms, which the QS and the QN in this case are a little bit less. So, because I charge a premium for my king rooms as opposed to my doubles. So I can use this structure I still have highlighted here. I'm going to hit copy to again, rack rate, and then my 2 room types that are 2 queen bedded rooms. And I'm just going to reduce that price by $10, so minus 10. I'm going to say OK. And now what that's done, and as you can see, now we have a $90 price weekday, $115 weekend for those. My double doubles are my base or my least expensive room. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit copy to my rack rate, my double double, and that one's going to be $15 less than my king rooms. So I like how that looks now. That's how I want my rates to be for my standard room rates throughout the year. Now, if I have a certain period of time where we're going to have a premium, i.e. a higher season or maybe a particular event, let's just say 4th of July weekend, or the closest thing we have to 4th of July in here, which for this year is a weekend. So what I want to do here is I'm going to change just those days. So, all right. And just 2 days here. And what I want to do is I'm going to up those to $150. And then I want to use my same process of copy to. All my kings, not my double. And watch yourself, the screen rolls a little bit when you're right down on the edge of that line. Okay, copy that over there. Again, copy to my rack rate, double queens. Take $10 off the double queen price, and one more time for my double doubles. Okay. Lisa, you have a question? Yes. Copy 2 and from existing are both available in version 8. But I want you guys need to get up to version 9 very soon for many reasons. But one of them is that for better compliance, there's more functionality and extra windows. But yes, those functions are available in version 8. As soon as this is over, Lisa, send me an email or give me a call, and we'll talk about getting you guys scheduled to get updated to version 9. It's free, so no charge. All right. Now, last but not least, as always, most important is to save your work. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, so and this is informational. No need to worry about it. It's a program telling you that it has done what it wants to do. Okay, now, I'm going to go back to our full spread here. And we can come down in here, and if we scroll down into July, there's our premium at there. And then it's also available over here. You can scroll through this screen and see everything, all of your room types in one screen here. If your room types on the right end up a little squished, you can click and drag this a little bit one way or the other. Or you can use these little buttons up over here on the top right, which would show you just all of that, or just get there, hide that form completely if you don't want to look at it while you're working. Okay. Now, we've done all of our rooms for one room type, for one rate class for this time of year. Now, what we have is, if you have other rate classes that you want to copy these over to, that you don't have based on RAC, you have another tool, which is from existing. And this is also in version 8 as well. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to say, I want to do my corporate rate. And corporate rate is automatically set as a discount off of RAC of $25, and that's what we see in this grid here. Okay, and that means that's my default corporate rate is $25 off. Well, now maybe for 4th of July weekend, I don't want to offer any amount off. Okay, I can click right in here and change those to 0. And what that would mean is if someone books a corporate rate and they're going to be staying for 2 weeks and it's through 4th of July weekend, they're not going to get a discount for Friday and Saturday night. They're going to be paying the same price as everyone else with RAC rate. Okay. Now, if we have another rate class, and I think in my example, I really like to talk about saying everything should have its own, if you base all of your rates off of RAC, then you don't have to come through and populate too many other rates. Now, in this case, we have a negotiated rate here with Zelda Ramen Corporation. And their rate is populated here at $100. Now, say I want to set as a default for this time period, I'm going to say I want Zelda Ramen to be $10 off of my RAC rate, but that's what it's going to be for the rest of the year. And if my RAC rate goes up or down throughout the year, if I change my rates, I don't want these to change. So I can't base it off of RAC rate like I do most of my other rate classes. But I currently want to use my RAC rate structure, all the rates that we define for weekday and weekend and the prices for different room types. I want to use my RAC rate to populate this. So what I can do here is I can use the from existing function. And I'm going to say I want to copy from my RAC rate. and it's going to copy into my Zelda Ramen rate class. Okay, and then I can also say, if I do all room types, it'll copy it over as rack rate. And then maybe I'm going to, and maybe in my negotiated, say I'm going to give them $15 off of my rack rate. And then that just populated this entire thing with $15 off each room type each day of the week consistently. Now, if I'd used copy 2, it would have copied just one room type into the entire thing over into the entire rate class at one price. Using from existing allows me to copy everything over and keep each day of the week, room type, and each one of those copies over and then applies the discount that I wanted to apply. You can also apply it as a premium, i.e. if you wanted to copy from existing and increase the price for a particular rate class, you can do the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save here for the moment. Always want to save our work. Okay. Now, I'm going to escape back over here, and we're going to go into rate classes again. So when I said that we have rates that are based on other rate classes, when I blow this screen up here, you can see that my list here shows me which rate classes have a rate base of another rate class. So my leisure and event rates are based off of rack. My promo and seasonal rates are based off of whatever my AAA rate is. And my corporate rate is based off of rack. And then it shows if you have a percentage or a flat amount as a discount in these fields over here also. So you can easily take a look and see what the discount is and which rate classes are based off of another rate class. Okay. Now, in our rate grid, let me bring up my AAA here. Okay, and I like to talk about this. Now, the one thing you'll notice over here is it looks like that all the rates are $10, but that's not the case. That means that for every room type that you have in AAA, your default is 10% off of my rack rate. Now, if you, for example, have a slow season where in the wintertime you want to extend a higher discount, you can do that too. You put in here and say, all right, well, from November through January, I want to give as an incentive, maybe a AAA promo, I'm going to extend a 15% discount instead. So now, in wintertime, everyone who presents a AAA card is going to get 15% off. Now, also remember, I have my promo events are also based off AAA, so they'll get this same discount as well. Okay. So, any questions on anything so far? No hands? Pardon me, I only took a water here. All right. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on is rate tiers. Now, is anyone here currently using rate tiers in AutoClerk? Raise your hand. Christina? Okay. Does anyone, if you know what rate tiers are, okay, a tier is, and that's what we're going to talk about here. The tier is what it allows us to have complete sets of rates that apply at different times based on what your occupancy is. Okay? So let me give you an example. Right now, if I hit my F4 screen, let's install our configuration so we can see what we've done so far. Okay, so when I hit F4, you can see that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I have different prices here. Okay, now, at 70% occupancy, I have a particular tier and rules that are in place that will allow me to have a different set of rates applied based on the rules I have. Okay. So, Christina, you have one tier in place that says that once you hit 75%, it goes up by $5. Now, you can have more than one tier. Yay, thank you. Okay, good. All right. And what I've actually done in my test data set here is that you can see that the price changes based on other occupancy. And when we get down to having all rooms available, there's a certain price. And what I'm going to do here, I used an example to keep it relatively simple, but have a complex tier setup. Okay, so I have, in this sample, I have 7 rate tiers. Okay, now what that means is each rate tier is a complete set of rates for all of your room types and rate classes. It's a duplicate, and you go into each of those tiers and set prices that you want to that you want to apply when different tier rules come into play. Now, I'm just going to cover a lot of different ideas here for a moment, so just bear with me for a minute here. Here we have, and to make it as straightforward as I can in a group setting, I named my tiers rate up 10, rate up 15, rate up 20, rate down 10, rate down 15, rate down 20. And standard rates, my default is number 4 here. What this means is I'm going to set up rules that say when my occupancy reaches a certain percentage, I want at a certain day in advance. You can also set it up to say I want this to look 30 days in advance for this rule or today. And I want it to say when I cross a certain threshold of occupancy, i.e., the example is that we have is that one person is set to raise their rates $5 when their occupancy goes over 75%. I've done it up here with a 10, 15, and 20 so I can keep going. Or down if we're in a lower demand period and your occupancy is too low, maybe you want to lower your prices to capture some extra business as it comes in when you get it in whatever season. So there are 7 tiers here in place. And my tier rules look like this. Now, these rules are set so that I use the 7-day date range, past, for future, and I'm saying that I used the simplest thresholds of saying even percentages. Now, what's most important to realize here is that AutoClerk sees this screen and tries to determine which rule is going to be in effect for whatever date that it's looking at. Okay, so and I used a 7-day out, and I said if my house occupancy on the whatever day it is greater than or equal to 80%, and the date is less than or equal to 7 days from now, I want to use Tier 1, which is a $20 premium. If it's 70%, I have a $15 premium. If it's 60%, I have a $10 premium. Now, I also then said, if over 7 days from now, so if my house occupancy on a specified date is less than or equal to 20%, and the date is over 7 days from now, I give them a $20 discount to try and entice business. Same thing here for a 30% and 40% for a week out. Now, the other thing that's most important is that when we look at this screen and the program reads it to try and determine what rate to apply on what day, it needs to know what you can have, because rules in these cases, you see we have one rule that says 80, one that says 70, one that says 60. AutoClerk reads from the top down in this screen. So it's going to start at the first rule, and it's going to read that and say, is my occupancy 80%? No. I'm going to go down to the next one. Is my occupancy 70%? No. I go down here. My occupancy is 65%. So I come down here, and then it says, okay, it's less than 7 days. My occupancy is 65%. This is the rate that's going to be in effect for that day. Okay? And it will automatically change. As soon as you cross that threshold, that rate will then automatically go up or down based on anything else that we have. So now in the lower 3 rules, you'll notice that I don't have them in a ascending sequence. I have them in a descending, because our question here is phrased to say, if my house occupancy is less than or equal to 20, I'm going to give them a 20% premium. But if my occupancy is at 45%, none of these rules would apply. At 35%, it would read down, it would see less than or equal to 20, no. Less than or equal to 30, no. Less than or equal to 40, 35 fits that rule, and it uses the last rule in this case. Now, in this case, you notice we also don't have Tier 4, which is our standard tier, which is the tier that we were working on, that we built all of our rates on. Okay? So using that, if there is anything in here where no rules apply, then your default tier becomes the rate that will show. So the way I wrote these rules is to say all other situations that don't fit within these rules will land to my default tier. Okay? Now, some people may have 1 or 2 rules in place. Some people you can have 20 rules in place. You can have, I think, like up to, we've tested, I think, up to 20 rate tiers. Now, managing all of those rates may be the hardest part, but there is some very quick tricks to help us manage and copy those over. So what I'm going to do, let me go ahead and escape out of here. And we're going to go back into our rate setup grid. And through the end of the year, I want to copy all of my rates that we just did here for the remainder of this year, and I want to fill out the rates on my other tiers. So what we're going to do here is, you see when I come into the screen, my default tier is the one that shows up here, and it's currently set at Tier 4. I'm going to start with Tier 1 in this case, and Tier 1 is my $20 up rate. Okay? And what I want to do is I'm going to copy from existing. I'm going to copy from my 4 all rooms, all rates at $20. And now everything is in place. It's just copied over all of those rates that we worked on earlier in one fell swoop, added $20 to them. And then we can just click through right here. The next one, we just do the same thing. From existing, from Tier 1, all rate classes, all room types, $15. Tier 3, $10. And then the same can apply when you're doing these from existing, copy from Tier 1, minus $10. Now the nice thing is that another reason why I named my tiers the way I did is because I can see right here, it reminds me I'm doing a negative $10 here in my Tier 5. Oh, and I want to copy from 4. And there we have it. Okay. Now, anyone have any questions on that? Okay. Now, everything that I've gone over here is included in this large document that I put together, which is going to be available on myAutoClerk.com as well, and will also be where we're going to have other webinars coming up, both for groups, City Ledger, packages. Hopefully I'll have one in early June. We'll be doing a package webinar, and I'll go over how packages in AutoClerk work as well. All right. So if I have any other questions, please feel free. If there's anything you want clarification on that you don't want to ask in this today, send me an email, james@autoclerk.com, or go ahead and give us a call, 925-284-1005. My extension is 1833. Okay? And I'd like to thank you all for joining us. And one last time, any questions? Raise your hand. Mark? Oh, thank you. Did everyone feel like they learned something today, I hope? Yes? Okay. Thank you.